tax. Of course he would be.
Well, he's a job creator, Tom. He's paying all the taxes. What did Ron Johnson say the other day on Vicki McKenna's show? Because now Ron, a very wealthy man in his own regard, married quite well, I hear. Well, he put his grandiose wealth in a family trust, and he went from paying about $110,000 each and every tax year to paying approximately zero each and every tax year in state taxes now, with the benefit of the Wisconsin manufacturers and tax credit, and the fact that somehow he can turn a family trust into a human-like entity that gets the garnered benefit of just the sweetest perks of all time, Tom. And the fact that thing's been a budget buster since the day it was conceptualized and jammed through under Republican governance, Tom. So what? If the rich people get a bigger tax cut, well, there's a lot more poor people to clean up that mess.
And Michael's flat tax would tax the poor people more. Let's squeeze some in. Sam, you're up from Madison, Wisconsin. Welcome, Sam. What do you got for us?
Hey, I just wanted to let you know, I don't know how many more, but yes, there is the one 22-year-old listening. That is me.
Right.
And I really appreciated the coverage yesterday. I wasn't able to see the event on campus, so that coverage was very good, and it sometimes is difficult to find that coverage or find it on YouTube or Facebook or anything. So tuning into that and the debates on 92.7. And since we last talked, I have found at least 10 people I know, not counting my elder family, that are going to be voting. So
nice.
Have faith in us.
Well, we do, Sam. And I would have more faith if you can convince them all to listen to the Devil's Advocates radio show each and every weekday between 4 and 6 p.m. We have nothing but the finest guests, including the next one. My Congressman, Mark Pocan, he was at the rally yesterday. And Dom, if I heard him correctly, he's promised the entire crowd, the hundreds of college students assembled, and yours truly, free weed if we go out and vote in this big election.
Free weed for everybody.
I'm going to hold Mark to that. Stick around. The Devil's Advocates continues. We got young listeners like Sam from Madison, and we got old listeners like Dom from Whitefish Bay. And you, of course, you're probably in the middle. And Mark Pocan, our fine guest, is next. Stick around. More Devils, the Thursday edition, Obama-Ween Eve.
This is a country where the average person is getting poorer, where the suicide rate is spiking.
Friends don't let friends spread fake news. Make sure to follow Devil Radio on Facebook and Twitter and stay up to date with the most important stories of the day.
Hi, everyone. Listen to the Matt McNeil Show weekday afternoons at 3 p.m. on Devil Radio 92.7 and WTTN 1580 AM. 1 hour every weekday where we'll talk about all sorts of things like politics, especially with what's going on right now, plus other things too. Parenting, the arts, religion, music, beer. If it matters to Wisconsin and Minnesota, we'll talk about it. Phone calls are welcome at 952-946-6205. For 1 hour each day, come see the trained chimp, the Matt McNeil Show, 3 p.m. weekday afternoons right here on Devil Radio 92.7 and WTTN 1580 AM.
This local musical interlude is brought to you by Max Inc. Radio. Dana Perry.
What am I fearing? Why do I worry at all? 'Cause I can feel that.
Listen to Max Inc. Radio every Saturday and Sunday, 6 p.m. to midnight. Download the podcast at maxincradio.com. We are local music.
I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. President Biden touts the latest economic numbers showing the economy grew at 2.6 annual rate from July through September. He also celebrates plans by U.S.-based Micron to build a semiconductor production plant that will employ some 50,000 people in the Syracuse, New York area.
One of the most significant investments in American history. And it's going to ensure that the future is made in America. One of the bright spots around the country.
In recent weeks, Biden has promoted Democratic accomplishments, from his infrastructure law while standing next to a rebuilt bridge in Pittsburgh to reassuring seniors in Portland, Oregon, they will soon see prescription drug costs capped. A man grabbed a knife off a supermarket shelf and stabbed 6 people inside a store near Milan, Italy. One person, a supermarket employee, is dead. 3 others in serious condition. Investigators say they don't have a motive, but terrorism has been ruled out. The suspect is in custody. I'm Tim McGuire.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month. And that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-51.
For Civic Media, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Republican gubernatorial candidate Tim Michels has floated the idea of implementing a flat tax in Wisconsin if elected governor. Michels has provided few details on his tax plan, but stated he would like to get the flat rate under 5%, and he would not want to raise taxes on anyone. Wisconsin's nonpartisan Legislative Fiscal Bureau prepared a new analysis that shows a flat tax would need to be 5.22% to not require significant spending cuts in the state. At that rate, 73% of Wisconsin tax filers would see an increase in their taxes, and the top earners in the state would see a significant decrease in the amount of tax owed, including for Michels himself. A flat rate that doesn't raise anyone's taxes would need to be set at 3.45%. According to economists, that rate would reduce state revenue by $5.59 billion in the first year and $3.855 billion every year after that. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Big and tall of political talk, the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the Thursday edition. Dominic, we welcome back a fine guest, a good friend, my Congressman, Mark Pocan. Mark, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark, really enjoyed the campaign event on campus yesterday. Elizabeth Warren and all the cavalcaded Democratic stars, Governor Tony Evers, Tammy Baldwin, Josh Call, Sarah Rodriguez, and of course you were there as well, Mark, and I took note of a promise you made to the assembled college kids. Mark, I thought you said free weed for everyone.
Yeah.
I was seeing if they were paying attention. I was talking about Democratic stances and marijuana being legal, and I added and free just to see if they were listening, and guess what? They were.
Mark, I think your ass wrote a check. Your checkbook may not be able to cash, Congressman. Anyways, it was sort of the theme of the day. I noted that Governor Tony Evers picked up on that theme. Mark, do you think that's his new avocation, free weed or something of that sort?
You know, it was a really motivated crowd, and it was great to be there. And if we can get that kind of motivation and people getting out voting early, for the governor, for Mandela Barnes, for Josh Call, for all the Democrats statewide and you know, in the House and Senate, then we can be in really great shape. So we just need to keep that kind of motivation going.
Mark, we were just talking about the young kids, the college age young adults here in the state of Wisconsin, and how much we need them to overcome what is a very consistent Republican electorate. They vote in the presidentials, they vote in the midterms, they vote in the spring elections, but oftentimes the college kids don't vote unless they're properly motivated. Obviously, I think events like the Warren event yesterday helps. But Mark, do you think we'll have turnout more resembling the 2014 midterms or the 2018 midterms when we saw about a 50% increase in young people voting?
Well, and that's honestly what we need. I'll tell you one challenge. In 1 week alone, I was at 7 UW campuses in Wisconsin in 1 week. And the concern is 2 years ago, you lost all infrastructure on campuses for getting out the vote, right, because of COVID. And a lot of the students that would have been part of those efforts would have been leading the efforts now. Instead, we're kind of rebuilding those efforts. So it is important that we prioritize campuses because there are, 300,000 undergraduate students in the state, and that's a big voting block. But we're trying. So, Elizabeth Warren was fantastic yesterday. Bernie Sanders is coming next weekend. He'll be in Madison and Eau Claire and La Crosse and other spots. This is the kind of thing we're doing to make sure that people know that they can vote early and that they can vote as well, of course, on Election Day. But, there's no reason not to go vote right now. In fact, I think as true as my statement was on free weed is my next statement, that if you vote now, by November 8th, at least for you, the social media giants will make sure that there's no more political ads pop up on your device. But if you don't vote, you're going to forever, it's going to be like Groundhog's Day. Every day, you're going to have all those terrible pop-up political ads. So vote.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Fine guest, Mark Pocan, my congressman, our friend. Mark, I feel remiss in that we didn't note former President Barack Obama coming to Milwaukee Saturday. We're going to broadcast it all across the Civic Media Network. Mark, if the Democratic Party has a closer, Obama's that guy. Do you think that will help with the young kids, perhaps African-American voters? How big is this appearance by Obama?
It's big and important, and we need this like crazy. So yesterday, I think in addition to Senator Warren, we had Secretary Marty Walsh from the Department of Labor. Tomorrow, Pete Buttigieg is in town, or is it? Yeah, tomorrow, I believe. President Obama on Saturday, and then next week you've got, I think, Cory Booker, and you've got a whole lot of other people, Senator Sanders. People realize how important Wisconsin is. It's one of the most watched states from both the congressional elections, the Senate elections, and the governor's election. And we have to do everything to get people out to vote. We know people agree with us on the issues, but if they don't vote, it doesn't matter how much they agree with us. That's when the MAGA Republicans, the extremists, will win if we don't get out.
Congressman Mark Pocan, some talking points, some bragging perhaps. GDP up 2.6% this quarter, higher than the 2.3% expected. Is this something that's going to help Democrats as they kind of counter, the narrative that the Republicans are the ones that are great for business?
Well, thanks for bringing this up because so often Republicans are like, oh, we're the ones who are better for the economy. Well, okay, first of all, anyone with a decent brain work and knows that it's global inflation. This isn't inflation that's caused by the president or by Congress. This is inflation across the planet yes, because of reopening from COVID. But when it comes to the economy, so often Republicans, get their little Shriner car and they run it into the wall by, spending too much on tax cuts for the wealthiest, because those are still expenditures. They're tax expenditures, and they make sure the wealthiest and the special interests get their money. And then Democrats come and then, put the car back together, and then we let them go back in and then crash it. So right now, we've put the car back together. Unemployment, when you think about it, we were at, I think it was 10% unemployment at the beginning of the Biden presidency, and now we're at record low unemployment. And, that's a good thing. Yes, there's inflation, but it is global inflation. But the job growth is not like it is in the United States everywhere, and that is something you can attribute to Democrats in Congress and President Biden.
Another big issue, of course, as you mentioned, inflation, and gas prices, a big part of that. But I got to tell you, Mark, I saw Shell Oil got almost $10 billion in the third quarter profit alone. Now, I haven't verified this, but I've seen that's higher than the GDP of over 100 different countries. And then on top of that, Mark, they announced a $4 billion buyback. It seems to me that part of the inflation that we've been dealing with is directly attributed to price gouging by big oil.
Absolutely. In fact, a year ago, March, remember when there was that cold spell in Texas and the electricity went down because they don't invest in their infrastructure and the refineries went down, right? And gas prices shot up and they never went down. Remember that. They never went down. And we have audio from oil company executives saying that they didn't increase production because they were maximizing return for their shareholders. And then we've watched everything else transpire this year. And when you look at where most of the inflationary increases have gone, it's something like half of them have gone to corporate profits, and a smaller portion have gone to the cost of goods going up and to workers. But this is a very different sort of inflation. It's gone to corporate profits, and there's no question that oil companies are gouging us. And people have to remember that. And don't forget what party will sit there and genuflect to the oil companies if they're in charge, and that's the Republicans. So we've got to do something about that obscene profit.
Haven't
them as well.
the Dems tried, Mark? I mean, you proposed legislation to address these, right? How did that go?
We had a bill. Yep, we had a bill on price gouging, and Ron Johnson voted against it. We had a bill to lower energy costs through the Inflation Reduction Act, and Ron Johnson voted against it. We had invested in 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations to get around the oil companies in the Infrastructure Act. Ron Johnson voted against it. I think you're getting a pattern here, right? Ron Johnson has voted in the pockets of the special interest every single time. And that's why, Mandela Barnes, it's such an important election. We have to change our senators, and we have to give Tammy Baldwin some help. The state basically has one senator working double time. If you want Tammy to have a vacation, get out and vote early. She deserves one.
Mark Pocan, working class, non-college educated voters here in the state of Wisconsin, if I believe the polling, they seemingly overwhelmingly support Ron Johnson. And I think it's a reflection of the fact that somehow along the line, Democrats lost the support of a big chunk of the working class. Mark, I know you've always been good on these issues, man, but how did the Democrats message? I mean, we're 2 weeks in a wake-up, Mark. How did the Democrats make their closing pitch to working class Wisconsinites?
Talk core economic issues, what people actually talk about at their kitchen table. Most people are worried about, do they have money for their rent or mortgage? Can they pay for their groceries? Do they have health insurance? Are they going to have Social Security when they retire? It's their money the government's holding. And maybe can you buy that little luxury, right? A snowmobile or a camper or a boat or something, depending where you live. That's what we got to focus on. And we are the best on the economy. Ron Johnson wants to put Social Security on the chopping block every single year. And it's not just that he wants to, make sure that those who are the poorest don't get their fair share. It's not even their fair share. It's their money. We pay into it out of our paychecks, and we hold it for when you need it. And Ron Johnson is so extreme that even though the National Republican Study Committee, which is a big group of Republicans, have said every 5 years, Ron Johnson wants to do it every single year. That's how extreme he is on core economic issues. And we should be talking about that a whole lot more.
Mark, we try here to talk about economic issues, but I know Dominic and I also believe in small d democracy. And we look at the actions of U.S. Senator Ron Johnson and his alleged role and confessed role in being the handoff, the conduit of false Trump electors to the vice president, or at least he expressed a willingness to do so. Mark, how do we deal with, in this elective cycle, the insurrectionists, be it Derek Van Orden in the 3rd Congressional District or U.S. Senator Ron Johnson? How do we set aside their complicit nature and just deal with kitchen table issues, Mark?
Yeah, I still think people vote those pocketbook issues the most, but clearly on some polling about, 6 weeks ago, democracy was rising. People are concerned. And in Wisconsin, we have actually some of the most embarrassing candidates running when it comes to the insurrection on January 6th. Ron Johnson, who was proposing or almost complying with submitting fake electors from Wisconsin to Vice President Pence, and now he's trying to walk that back significantly. I guarantee November 9th, he'll be back to every crazy aspect that Rojo brings to the table. And then Derek Van Orden in the 3rd Congressional District actually attended the insurrection out of his campaign account, lied about being there. There's photos of him on the Capitol grounds. There's audio of Derek on the wall with the boys. I'm not talking XY chromosome boys. I'm talking the Proud type of boys. And this guy won't denounce the Proud Boys. Can you imagine if Marjorie Taylor Greene has to say who elected this nut to Congress? And that could be the guy that's going to represent Western Wisconsin come November 8th if we don't get out and vote.
Mark Pocan, my understanding is there was some news from the Progressive Caucus. You and many of your colleagues in the House signed off on a letter, and this letter was signed off on 4 or 5 months ago. The timing, a little conspicuous, Mark, in that this letter has now been leaked to the public. And God forbid you and some of your progressive friends said that we should encouraged the negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. But the timing was way earlier, Mark. This was well before some of the news of the war crimes of Putin's regime. Mark, how did this become public? And I know you've walked back this statement, Mark, but explain it to the audience, if you would, in your own words, Congressman. About 2 minutes.
Sure. I mean, back in, for me, it was July. We signed a letter, a number of us, trying to keep diplomacy on the table, which was actually backing the position of Joe Biden when there was the first talks about Vladimir Putin possibly using nukes. And so it was a common sense letter. It was backing the current policy of the president. There were some war hawks kind of trying to stir things up. We didn't want anyone going that path. The problem is, for some reason, they kept the letter open for several months, and they finally released it this week in a very, very different time. It never should have been released. That's why the chair of the Progressive Caucus said, I'm withdrawing the letter. It never should have been out there. But the Washington Post also screwed it up. They said that we were asking for a change in policy, which is not true. In fact, just the opposite. We were saying, continue to support what the president's doing. We're going to continue to support Ukraine with the help that they need. But, sometimes if you're in the process of explaining, you're losing. Doesn't matter. The headline was already out there. And unfortunately, it was a little blip in time, but a very unnecessary blip.
Congressman Mark Pocan, my congressman, next time I see you around town, sir, I'm looking for my free weed.
Just two of us, Mark.
Always appreciate you coming around, Congressman. Don't be a stranger. We'll catch up with you before the election or at one of the glorious election night victory parties, I suspect.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Come back. More Devil's Advocates, the Thursday edition. It's soon to be the Friday edition, Don, but we ain't done yet. And we've still got time for the callers at 844-967-2789.
I said I'm running, but I took my time. A friend of the devil is a friend of mine. I get home before daylight, just might get some sleep tonight.
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Is it safe?
It's okay to have questions. Now, get the facts. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so that you can make an informed decision when COVID-19 vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Warning, listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
It's scary. Maybe I am coming a little bit more over the left, but...
Well, it's not left. It's good governance, Dave.
It's good to be exposed to different ideas, and I do appreciate that you do put that out there on the airways, because a lot of times where you just get a little soundbite of this or a little bit of that, and that's the end of it. You're to be commended for that.
Dave, I'm glad you finally come around to commending the greatest radio show ever, man.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Hi there, I'm Kirk Bankstad, and I own the Minocqua Brewing Company, and I also have a super PAC. We make good trouble in the North Woods of Wisconsin. You can support our efforts at the MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and buy our Wogue gear, like t-shirts, hoodies, and trucker hats. Enter the code RADIO and get 10% off on your next purchase. A portion of all sales support the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC, which is dark money meant for good. That's the MinocquaBrewingCompany.com.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phones open at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, always appreciate when our good friend, Congressman Mark Pocan, comes around. Appreciate it, Mark.
Free weed Pocan.
No, man, I'm looking for some loose joints, Congressman. One for all of my friends as well. All the listeners. If you partake in such things, but doesn't everybody?
Doesn't everybody?
Dominic, we talked about the insurrectionist actions of Derek Van Orden and, perhaps the complicit actions of Ron Johnson. He wanted to be part of the insurrection. He wanted to be part of the procedural coup. And, now he's claiming 5
He was,
seconds.
man.
Rule.
Listen, if you take the car with the dead body in the trunk and you drive it to the junkyard, right? And they don't take it, it doesn't mean you weren't part of the crime, man. It's, what are you talking about?
Come on, Ron gave the keys to the valet. At that point, it's the valet's problem.
Well, and ultimately, what became of these records? What did they do with them?
Well, Dominic,
I've never heard that.
There's some interesting new reporting out at CNN at this hour. First time I'd ever seen this. You know who was unaware of the threat of January 6th? Apparently lots of online threats, lots of awareness from everyone.
Except
Mike Pence.
Hang Mike Pence had no idea they wanted to hang Mike Pence.
Mike Pence's team was never briefed on the threats. They learned about them watching the January 6th hearings in real time, Tom. That's got to sting a little. The Secret Service did not brief then Vice President Mike Pence or his team about online threats uncovered before the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Again,
and then you got to wonder why he didn't get into the vehicle with one of the Secret Service agents that he did not know, right? That was always kind of a strange little tidbit.
Dominic, this reporting, according to CNN, at the October 13th hearing of the House Select Committee investigating the J6 attack on the U.S. Capitol, Rep. Adam Schiff from California said the Secret Service was aware. They were aware of threats against Pence, including one saying that he'd be a dead man walking if he doesn't do the right thing. Overturn the electoral process for the benefit of Trump, right? CNN has learned that Pence and his team were never briefed on those threats, according to a source familiar, and only learned of them when they were made public during this month's hearings. A spokesperson for the Secret Service also declined to comment on whether Pence was briefed on the threats, apparently because he wasn't, Dom. CNN's Jamie Gangle told reporter John Berman the news was quite incredible. Pence and his team were never briefed. CNN also reported the Select Committee is seeking to interview 6 key Secret Service witnesses. Oh, I bet. Dom, many of them are resistant, deleting text messages and all that kind of stuff. Because
yes,
phone upgrades.
Yes, no,
let's get rid of everything.
Those things happen. I mean, what a disaster. What a setup. And for people to think that this, I don't know how you can actually think that this was not on purpose, not conspiratorial, given what we know now of what we know. And I got to tell you, the other side, man, if the NSA is really tracking all the metadata of everything, everywhere, all this information is somewhere to be mined. I mean, people who have the ability to look at that already know.
Dominic, more legal news from House committees. I'm not sure if this is the J6. I suspect it's not. CNN also reporting, we just had a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, Mark Pocan. Damn it, we missed the opportunity to quiz him about the new ruling down that Trump must turn over his taxes. The House Ways and Means Committee is set to receive former President Donald Trump's IRS tax returns in 1 week after a federal appeals court on Thursday declined Trump's request to hold up the release.
Uh-oh.
Though, that Clarence Thomas could still intervene, or at least the Supreme Court could. The 3-judge panel on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals decided they won't put the handover of the former president's tax returns on hold after the full appeals court rejected Trump's request that they review an earlier decision allowing for the release of the returns. So, if I understand this, Tom, a lower court said, release the hounds, release the Trump tax returns. He's been hiding them so long, you're under audit. As soon as the audit's done, I'll release them. And then a 3-judge panel said, release the tax returns. And then an en banc, the entirety of the circuit, said, no, we agree with the lower court. We're not getting involved. Now it's going to go to the Supreme Court. And Is that still Clarence Thomas's district? Does he get to wade into this, shadow docket it, and make a determination and perhaps drag his feet just a little bit longer and keep Trump's tax returns away from the congressional oversight of the Ways and Means Committee? Because don't forget, if the Democrats lose the House in the midterm elections down by January 6th of this year, Republicans will control all those committees and they can bury Trump's taxes forever.
Forever? Ever?
Well, at least during their reign, at least for the next couple of years. So do you see how the timing of this, and all Clarence Thomas would have to do is drag his feet for another week or two, Dom, and the outcome, well, the outcome would probably be in doubt.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah. Crudy, some breaking news from Political. Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan on Wednesday temporarily blocked the January 6th Select Committee from accessing the phone records of Kelly Ward, the chair of the Arizona Republican Party. Kagan's two-page order stayed the subpoena pending further order of the other signed or of the court. Similar requests in high-profile cases are almost always referred to the full court. Ward had urged the justices earlier Wednesday to temporarily block lower court rulings that require T-Mobile to provide her phone records to the panel, which wants to examine her contacts in the weeks leading up to the attack on the Capitol. The panel sees Ward as an integral part of Donald Trump's effort to assemble false slates of electors and use them as part of a broader scheme to disrupt the transfer of presidential power to Joe Biden. Well, the peaceful transfer of power. Kagan gave the select panel until Friday at 5 p.m., that's tomorrow, to respond.
And one more, Dom. The writer who lured Officer Mike Fanone into the violent mob got the second longest sentence handed down so far. A man who faced 45 prior arrests before violently assaulting a Washington Metropolitan Police officer on January 6th was sentenced to 90 months. Thursday, 90 months, Dom. That's somewhere, 7 years?
7.5 years, yeah.
I don't know if that's enough, Dom. Marking the second longest judgment dished out for the Capitol riot, Albuquerque's Casper Head, who fought his way to the front lines of the skirmish at the Capitol's Lower West Terrace Tunnel, reportedly told Officer Michael Fanone that he would help him get away before yanking him from the police line and throwing him to the throngs of the angry mob. "I got one," Head shouted as he grabbed Fanone by the neck. I don't know, man. 7.5 years? I think it should be more. Come back, more Devil's Advocates, the happier happy hour, with your phone calls, perhaps. 844-967-2789.
Say, man, you got a joint?
Mike Pence said no.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
That's breathtaking.
Multi-millionaire Senator Ron Johnson won't stop trying to cut our Social Security. But you don't have to take my word for it. He just keeps saying it. Talking about benefit cuts.
Do you need to reduce benefits, maybe on a means-tested basis?
Or forcing seniors to work longer.
But you have to factor that in the programs, probably in terms of raising retirement ages.
And if that wasn't scary enough, now he's saying Social Security shouldn't even be guaranteed. And if politicians in Washington didn't renew it every year, it should end. I guess ending Social Security isn't a big deal if you're as rich as Senator Ron Johnson. But for the rest of us seniors, it's a matter of life and death, literally. Paid for by AFT Solidarity, www.aft.org, and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. AFT Solidarity is responsible for the content of this advertising.
You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil Radio app.
AP News, I'm Tim McGuire. Voting by mail or at early ballot locations already underway across the country as Election Day looms a week from this coming Tuesday. President Biden traveled to Syracuse, New York to tout U.S.-based Micron's plan to build a massive microchip plant.
This country lost over 180,000 manufacturing jobs under the last guy that had this job. We've created 700,000 manufacturing jobs on my watch, adding manufacturing jobs at a faster rate than in 40 years.
During the visit, Biden praised the latest economic numbers that showed a 2.6% growth in GDP in the third quarter, July through September. The president also claimed if the Republicans gain the majority in at least the House, the effort to help ordinary working people will grind to a halt.
Tax credits to lower energy bills, gone. Corporate minimum tax, gone. Under the Republican plan, some big corporations are going to go back to paying zero again. That's the plan. I would argue it's reckless and irresponsible and will make inflation worse if they succeed.
Just 3 days. That's how long it took to seat a jury of 12 people in the criminal tax fraud trial of Donald Trump's company. Surprising even some people involved in the case who thought it would take at least a week to find an impartial panel in New York City. 6 alternates still need to be seated. That process today and tomorrow using a second pool of potential jurors. The lawyers say they are on track for opening statements Monday. Disappointing quarterly reports from several tech companies result in a split close on Wall Street. The Nasdaq dropping 1.6% to 178. S&P also off 23 points, in part because Facebook's parent, Meta, lost nearly a quarter of its value. The Dow rose 194. This is AP News.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's Medishare. Maybe you've heard switching to Medishare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month. And that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch too. The customer satisfaction rate for Medishare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Medishare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-51.
I find your lack of Devil Radio 92.7 disturbing. Do not fail me again.
Cast your ballot this November. It's easier than ever, and if you want to vote absentee, you have until 5 p.m. November 3rd, the Thursday before Election Day, to request your absentee ballot. Find more information at myvote.wi.gov. This message from your Civic Media network of stations.
Jimmy K here for the Spaceship.tv. For those of you that know me well, you know I value my couch time. And getting out to shows, well, it's just not in the cards sometimes. Well, now the shows come to me with the Spaceship.tv. The Spaceship.tv is a virtual venue for artists of all kinds. They have great local music, plus the high quality stream makes for an amazing show on my big screen. Make your couch time rock and see a show at the Spaceship.tv today. The Spaceship.tv.
Hi. Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden.
This is the radio station you were looking for. Devil Radio 92.7. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the world together.
Help me, Devil Radio. You're my only hope.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnier with your headlines. David Stearns is stepping down as Brewers president of baseball operations, but stays on in an advisory capacity. GM Matt Arnold will now oversee the baseball operations department. Wisconsin Department of Health Services announced on Wednesday $8.3 million in a first-of-its-kind funding to support K-12 school health service staff in schools throughout the state. The money will be used to hire and retain school nurses and health staff in K-12 schools, as well as provide opportunities for school school nurses to pursue wellness activities and professional development. Wisconsin school nurses suffered major physical and emotional tolls due to the COVID-19 pandemic while still doing their job providing services to school kids across Wisconsin. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM, WTTN, 1580 AM.
Devil Radio programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios. Find them at solidarityrealty.com. Solidarity Realty. There is an alternative.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Thursday edition, the happy hour. Dominic, I saw our insurrectionist, former friend of the Devil's Advocates, Ron Johnson, yesterday out in the community in Beloit, Wisconsin. And today, there is an article at the Journal Sentinel, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Wisconsin's paper of record, if you will. Apparently, Rojo's leading with innuendos and baseless allegations about Milwaukee County. Now,
oh, come on, man. Of course he is.
No, the Milwaukee County Corporate Counsel, very good friend of ours, Maggie Dawn. And Maggie Dawn has already told us she is predicting a recount in Milwaukee County. And why is she so sure? Because Ron Johnson's already hired a recount attorney, the same guy that, aided Trump in the state of Wisconsin, Jim Trupis, the source, perhaps, of the fraudulent election scheme.
Yeah, the same guy, he took the phone call. Hey, when the president's attorney calls you, you take the call, right? That guy is who Ron Johnson hired.
Yes. Already paid him about $20,000 in anticipation of a probable recount in Milwaukee County. Why? Because if Ron loses, he doesn't plan on conceding. A little bit of reporting from Bill Glauber. As voters have already begun streaming to the polls, Republican U.S. Senator Ron Johnson this week raised doubts about early in-person absentee voting in Milwaukee and suggested his supporters in the city hold off from casting their ballots until Election Day. But Johnson, who faces Democratic Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes in the November 8th election, encouraged Republicans to vote early in other areas of the state. Here's what he said, Dom, a quote. I would recommend early voting if you have a Republican election clerk, Johnson said during a town hall Monday night in a clip tweeted by the advocacy group Heartland Signal, our friends down in Chicago. I'm not sure I would recommend a Republican go vote in Milwaukee, he added.
I think we have some of the sound. It may not be the same. Continue on, Curdy. I think we have. It's on the same sound, but same topic, but different. So go ahead.
Well, Rojo, Ron Johnson, senator from the state of Wisconsin, said, I'm not sure I would recommend a Republican go vote in Milwaukee. I don't know about the bipartisan observation of those early votes. It might be possible. A spokesperson for Johnson claimed the senator was joshing, Dom. Obviously, the senator meant that as a tongue-in-cheek comment. According to Alexa Hinning, I saw her yesterday.
How is that obvious?
Well, it's obvious.
Is it? Is it obvious? Was it obvious when he said, "Hey, if those Capitol rioters or the patriots that stayed within the velvet ropes, if those were Black Lives Matter protesters, I've been a little scared." Was that also tongue in cheek? Is it also obvious, or does he really mean what he says?
Dominic, according to Johnson's spokeswoman Alexa Henning, the senator was just in Waukesha Tuesday, where he encouraged early voting. where they've got a Republican clerk, probably.
Right. Waukesha, Wisconsin, in Waukesha County, not Milwaukee County.
We are confident we have Republican observers and poll workers in place. Wisconsinites should turn out and vote everywhere, including Milwaukee. But a spokesman for Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson pushed back at the senator's comments. Want to take this one?
Sure, man. Here is a quote. Jeff Fleming said, Milwaukee welcomes election observers, people who will see firsthand that elections here are conducted with the highest integrity. Innuendos and baseless allegations of election impropriety undermine the public's confidence in our elections. They harm the most important foundation of our democracy. Let's stick to the facts. There is no basis to suggest impropriety by Milwaukee election officials.
Now, didn't they call for recounts in Dane in Milwaukee County the last time through, Dom? I mean,
the
they
Republicans,
did.
Yes. Donald Trump paid for that. Yeah, yes.
And he didn't win. And there was no fraud overturned. In fact, every audit that's happened here in the state of Wisconsin, Dom, and I would remind, our less frequent listeners, Wisconsin has about 1,850 voting districts. So for there to be a fraud perpetrated in the way that could actually turn the outcome of an election, you would have to have conspiracies between multiple districts, probably, Dom. I mean, come on. You can't even point at Milwaukee County and say, well, if they cheat, then the whole election's going to get thrown out. Well, that's A, not true. And B, that's like the whole underlying engagement rationale for Republicans. They rigged the last election. Let's go vote in this one.
Well, of course, that doesn't make any sense either. And of course, they did rig the last election because all the audits that were done showed that by conservative Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, by the cyber ninjas, and hell, when they actually did the recount, I think Biden got more votes.
But Gableman said he thought we should strongly consider decertifying the election.
Well,
even though
Gableman
in correspondence he contradicted himself and his own counsel, the esteemed James Bopp of Marjorie Taylor Greene prior representation, he effectively said his own counsel living in a fantasy world. Foss just called him an embarrassment to the state of Wisconsin.
Yes, but let's listen to more of that conspiracy. We do have the actual sound from the senator here, if you want. Evan, thank you for grabbing that. Let's hear what he had to say.
I would recommend early voting, particularly if you have a Republican election clerk. I'm not sure I'd recommend a Republican go vote in Milwaukee. I just don't know about the bipartisan observation of those early votes. It might be possible. By the way, we really have a very robust election integrity component to our election. This year, for this election, we have more than 5,000 poll workers. These people that signed up last November, they've been trained. They'll be working with the Democrat poll workers.
Someone must be typing.
They'll be opening up the absentee ballot. So 5,000 versus 1,650 last election. We've got filled over 1,000 election observer shifts versus 314. We are getting downloads on a daily basis. I think like twice a day in terms of the absentee ballots being returned, comparing those to the registration, the voter files and stuff. So we're in contact with the Wisconsin Election Commission, their attorneys. They know we are watching them like a hawk. Election Commission, we're watching them like a hawk. We set up
Rojo's on the case.
SecurityElectionsWI.com. If you see something, say something, call in.
Well, I think that's enough.
We get the hint.
You did see something, and you did say something.
I did see something, and I did say something. Of course, as reported by Glauber here, the Milwaukee Journal, Sentinel Johnson campaign has set up a website to report alleged voter fraud, Crudy. And you know what I did? I went up, I did my civic duty. I reported alleged voter fraud, his alleged voter fraud, when he was attempting to, perpetuate the fraud, electoral fraud upon this country. And what happened since then, Crudy? I've been getting bombarded from text from this guy. I have gotten literally today 6, 7. Who do I got here? I got Ron asking for money.
Seeking more information.
No more information on the voter fraud. Nope. Support Dr. Oz.
The false Trump electors to the vice president.
No time for that. 6th. No time for that. Newt Gingrich is texting me, Crudy. Sorry, man. You're going to have to hold on for a second. Newt's, he's out there. Oh, Chuck Grassley, too. Chuck Grassley. Yes, this is all from Ron Johnson's website to report alleged voter fraud. You too can get a text from perhaps Karl Rove. Yes, Karl Rove also texted me today, not to be outdone. Rep. Scalise, Steve Scalise, Republican rep, also
no Matt
texted
Gaetz,
me.
no Jim Jordan. How about Glenn Grothman? Is he on that list?
No, not yet. Not yet. So this website is, of course, is a ruse. It's a joke. It's to try to separate you from your money and not to, of course, address any legitimate concerns. Of course, there are none. They've looked at it. You want to waste your time, knock yourself out. I wouldn't suggest coming armed and masked and covering up your license plates if you think you want to go check out some drop boxes. But, I mean, this is part of the electoral process. Be involved, volunteer, and get trained up and go do that. You know, and don't leave it up to all those nice little old retired people that all of a sudden became the enemies of the MAGA because MAGA lost. MAGA lost. That's it. That's all we're dealing with right now. MAGA lost. You lost the House. You lost the Senate. You lost the White House. MAGA is a loser, and they don't care. They're just going to keep drumming it up. I hope to God the trend line continues that this is a blue wave. Who knows? But MAGA is loser. They've looked at the elections. They've done the recounts. They've done all of this. So what the hell are you wasting your time for, Ron Johnson? Oh yeah, you got to keep them. You got to keep them fired up. That's the only reason, and take their money.
Dom, I felt a change of tone somehow since the last time I had seen Ron. A little more spry earlier when I'd seen him in the spring. But now, Dom, I got to tell you, with this latest interaction with the U.S. Senator from Wisconsin, he seemed resigned. You know, resigned to fate. Whatever fate offers, he seemed resigned, or at least that's the attitude. That was the impression I got. But then I look at the hiring of Jim Trupis, and I look at the track record of trying to overturn the outcome of the last presidential election. And I think to myself, what's the likelihood, if defeated on election night on November 8th, that Ron Johnson will concede the election to Mandela Barnes? What is the likelihood he'll call for a recount? Milwaukee County Corporate Council thinks very high. And what's the chances that Ron will never concede? That Ron will create his own rigged election? I mean, and even some of these candidates, you know, there's going to be Republicans that get blown out in some district. And they're going to be claiming rigged election. They're going to lose by 20, 30
Some
points.
Republicans lost their own Republican primaries against other Republicans and claimed Republican voter fraud.
Well, Trump did. Right. David Perdue, the runoff down in Georgia.
So, yes, I mean, that is certainly the plan. And just to circle back just briefly to why we started this whole rant with Ron Johnson in the first place. About Milwaukee voting, his remarks about Republicans. You know, go early vote if you have a Republican administrator in that county. Otherwise, don't. Well, he didn't tell. So I'm down. If you're a fan of Ron Johnson, I would listen to your senator. If you're in Milwaukee, Republicans, don't vote. That's what he said.
Dominic, do you see the new tact of the RNC chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel? She's trying mocking now. She's mocking specifically Joe Biden and John Fetterman. I'll tell you about it when you come back.
Yeah, tell me more about Romney's daughter.
Come back. I think it's her niece. I think it's niece.
Relation, Romney.
She dropped the Romney. Never dropped Romney. The Devils. We'll be back.
Here's a fun fact for you. The average chameleon can point their eyes in 2 different directions. On the other hand, the average human can't. So unless you're a chameleon, there's absolutely no way you can focus on texting and driving at the same time. So don't do it, unless you're a chameleon.
Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at P4PPC.org.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
You recall the Capitol insurrection? A post-ABC News poll showed 54% said Trump should be criminally charged for inciting the riot. That's like a litany of criminal allegations against the former president. You can say it's all partisanship and a witch hunt, but there wasn't one credible accusation against Obama during his entire 8-year term. So how Republicans just ignore all the evidence? I mean, he was perpetrating a coup on multiple levels.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling devil's advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines open for your take at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, we're nearing the midterms, and yeah, I don't want to talk horse race constantly. You know, let's talk about how the Republican chairperson, Ronna Romney, has chosen to help lift her team here at the last. Head of the Republican Party mocks the speaking abilities of Fetterman and Biden. According to John Wagner at the Washington Post, Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel, formerly Romney, on Thursday mocked the speaking abilities of Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, the Pennsylvania Democratic Senate candidate who's recovering from a stroke, and President Biden, who grew up with a stutter, apparently much like Rudy. McDaniel was interviewed by syndicated radio host Hugh Hewitt about news that Biden and Vice President Harris plan to appear at a political event in Philadelphia on Friday, intended to boost Fetterman and other Pennsylvania Democrats on the ballot. So Hugh Hewitt, I guess this is questioned. No one wants them except a doomed campaign, Hewitt said, suggesting that Democrats around the country have asked Biden and Harris to stay away. I do not underestimate the triple toxicity politically of those three can do, Hewitt, a Washington Post contributing columnist, which makes me question the Post logic.
Or judgment.
I hope there are cameras and microphones because you put those three together and they could say anything, Ronna. Well, maybe they could get a full sentence out, McDaniel replied. They're so clever, Dom.
Like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV.
Their guy was so brilliant by comparison.
He was, I mean, yeah. All right, go ahead, man. You can continue on.
Dominic, Ronna McDaniel Romney, formerly Romney, indicated
the
that
niece,
she
yes,
agreed with Hewitt about the undesirability of campaigning with Biden and Harris, speculating that Fetterman drew the short straw. I think all the candidates got together and said, which one of us has to campaign with Biden? Fetterman drew the short straw, McDaniel said. She added, so Biden said, between the two of us, we may be able to finish a full sentence.
Oh, it's a full sentence. That's a twofer to get it out there, because in case you didn't hear the joke the first time.
Dominic Fetterman, who suffered a near-fatal stroke in May, is locked in a tight race with Republican Mehmet Oz, Dr. Oz, the celebrity physician. During a debate Tuesday night, Fetterman at times stumbled over his words and spoke in a halting manner. Now, I understand he has an auditory processing issue since the stroke, Dom. Anyways, I'm not as clear that he's cognitively delayed in any way. More correct. So, he is delayed in his comprehension of the spoken word currently. During a television appearance Thursday, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy suggested that Fetterman's performance should give voters pause. Even those Democrats on CNN were embarrassed of who their nominee was and the capability of carrying out the job, McCarthy said this is a big job in the Senate. And Dom, McDaniel is not the first prominent Republican to mock someone with a disability. If you'll recall, during the 2015 campaign, Donald Trump mimicked a reporter with a congenital joint condition that limits movement in his arms. I don't remember. You remember that? My son has never forgotten that. My son has never forgiven that.
I don't remember.
Yes. There you go. That's the GOP. I mean, who would Jesus mock? Republicans? I'm just wondering, whose medical condition would the Lord God, our Savior, make fun of? Please let me know. If you know, you can give us a call. 844-967-2789.
But Dominic,
Michigan gave us Motang.
Kofifi. I mean, this guy, and even some of the takes, I mean, he gets that thick tongue. I don't know if it's some of the medication he's taking, but he gets problematic. Oh, right. Yes.
And we've heard him ramble extemporaneously many times, Dom. You and I have seen him in person. Yeah. And, far be it for me to question anyone's ability to clearly enunciate the words. Because, occasionally my brain or my mouth just stopped mid-sentence.
Sure, man. It happens to all of us.
I know that feeling.
Yes.
But Donald Trump is hardly a strong orator. That was not his strength. I mean, I know they made him look good on The Apprentice, Tom. But at a campaign rally, rambling on for 90 minutes?
Right.
Even the Trumpsters leave early at almost every Trump rally. There's a steady stream of people walking out. You know where I never saw that? At a Bernie rally.
Or Elizabeth Warren rally. 844-967-2789. Callers, be patient. We'll get to you after Evan screens the calls. He's working so hard for us today. But the mocking, this, and I always used to think, my politics, it's not as bad as it could be. It could be got lawyers, drop some F-bombs and, really let the people know what it's all about. And then, Trump comes along and makes this career out of making fun of other people from whatever, coming up with the nicknames or whatever he can see or think might be their weak point.
I actually admired that part, little Dominic.
Yeah, okay, Fat Crudy. we can get to the callers now. 844-967-2789. Jerry from Arizona, you're up. Welcome. What do you got?
Welcome,
for us?
Jerry.
How are you today?
Good,
fine, thank you.
Good. I just wanted to tell you, unfortunately, I was born ADHD, with a racing brain. My mother said she'd try to cuddle me on her lap and I'd squirm away and run around the house. And nobody's noticed that Donald Trump has the same symptoms as I have. That's why he never read his daily briefings. He can't stay focused reading. That's my problem. So I could never go to college because I could never memorize. It was hard enough getting through high school. But he's got the same symptoms as somebody with ADHD.
Jerry, I appreciate your thoughtfulness and your candor about your own condition. But you just expressed yourself very clearly there. And I've been to lots of Trump rallies, and I've never even seen that in small bursts. Come back with us. More of your phone calls. It's the Devil's Advocates, the Happier Happy Hour, 844-96-PARTY.
Yesterday is a hard word for me.
I virtually can't. I mean, my involved,
Wait a minute, Mr. Trump. You don't talk for the rest of us.
Texting.
Make sure you listen to Devil Radio 92.7. If you do, you go to heaven.
Salvatore's Tomato Pies, home of Madison's best farm-to-table pizza, is hiring. We are seeking line cooks, prep cooks, dishwashers, pizza makers, bartenders, servers, delivery drivers, and hosts. Sal's offers great pay, free shift meals, pay time off, and health insurance available for those working 30 hours a week. Students are welcome too. Positions available at all locations, Madison, Monona, and Sun Prairie. Stop into any location for an immediate interview or apply online at salvatorestomatopies.com. This local musical interlude is brought to you by Max Inc. Radio. Kelsey Miles.
Let the music roll. Hit it.
Listen to Max Inc. Radio every Saturday and Sunday, 6 p.m. to midnight. Download the podcast at maxincradio.com. We are
I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. President Biden touts the latest economic numbers showing the economy grew at 2.6 annual rate from July through September. He also celebrates plans by U.S.-based Micron to build a semiconductor production plant that will employ some 50,000 people in the Syracuse, New York area.
One of the most significant investments in American history. And it's going to ensure that the future is made in America. One of the bright spots around the country.
In recent weeks, Biden has promoted Democratic accomplishments, from his infrastructure law while standing next to a rebuilt bridge in Pittsburgh to reassuring seniors in Portland, Oregon, they will soon see prescription drug costs capped. A man grabbed a knife off a supermarket shelf and stabbed 6 people inside a store near Milan, Italy. One person, a supermarket employee, is dead. 3 others in serious condition. Investigators say they don't have a motive, but terrorism has been ruled out. The suspect is in custody. I'm Tim McGuire.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month. And that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-50.
This is Pat Kreitlow from Up North News, normally with headlines and commentary, but in this case, some self-promotion about our new time and new stations. Up North News Radio will now be heard right here and all across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Network starting Monday morning. Catch us weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. We'll continue to have Wisconsin news, analysis, guests, and updates on the morning's headlines, sports, music, and other interesting ways to start your day. You can hear us on the radio, online, or on demand at all the usual podcast places, as well as civicmedia.us and the Civic Media app. The work of our reporters at Up North News can still be found at upnorthnewswi.com. Sign up for our daily newsletter while you're there, and search for Up North News WI on your favorite social media sites. So join us up north from our Lake Wissota studio here in the state of Wisconsin Sense, 6 to 8 a.m. weekdays starting Monday for Up North News Radio.
60% of the time, they're right every time. The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Thursday Happier Happy Hour. Glad you're listening to it. You can always be a part round here, 844-967-2789. But Dom, I think it's been a while. I think it's time to pick a little fight with you and your heathen atheist
Come on, man. It's been a long couple of days.
Mike Pence made a statement, Dom, and I know you're going to take some issue with this statement. Americans have no right to a freedom from religion. You have no right, Dom. Former Vice President Mike Pence claimed during a Wednesday appearance on Foxy Business that the First Amendment to the United States Constitution does not protect Americans from having other people's faiths forced upon them. Really? I thought that was right in that.
Hey, what do you want, man? He is the former vice president of the United States, and most importantly, which qualifies him to be the expert on everything, he was a radio guy.
Well, Dominic, I know he's our former colleague in talk radio, although I suspect we do it a little more dynamically than Mike Pence ever did. Although that fly on his head, I hear he was his former co-host. Dom, here is a statement from the U.S. Constitution. Maybe you've heard of it. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances It's state. But what's the old Alito attitude? If it ain't in there, then it ain't in there. In fact, according to the author here, there are no references to a supreme being anywhere in the Constitution because the founding fathers were adamantly opposed to centralized religious power, as well as requiring individuals to subscribe to any particular denomination, Dom. So where did your buddy Pence get that from?
A little bit more here. Let's remind people the conception of separation of church and state was sacrosanct to men like President Thomas Jefferson, who wrote in his 1776 Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom that setting up their own opinions and modes of thinking as the only true and infallible, and as such endeavoring to impose them on others, hath established and maintained false religion over the greatest part of the world and through all time, and that to compel a man to furnish contributions of money for the propagation of opinions which he disbelieves and abhors is sinful and tyrannical. I don't even know if I know what sinful is because I don't believe in that. But that's me, not Jefferson. Jefferson's condemnation of forced faith in the document was unambiguous, further affirming that no man shall be compelled to frequent or support any religious worship, place, or ministry whatsoever, nor shall be enforced, restrained, molested, or burdened in his body or goods, nor shall otherwise suffer on account of his religious opinions or belief, but that all men shall be free to profess and by argument to maintain their opinions in matters of religion, and that the same shall in no wise diminish, enlarge, or affect their civil capacities. President James Madison, in whose hand the Constitution was penned, concurred with Jefferson. The settled opinion here is that religion is essentially distinct from civil government and exempt from its cognizance, that a connection between them is injurious to both, that there are causes in the human breast which ensure the perpetuity of religion without the aid of law, Madison explained in an 1819 letter, that noting that a legal establishment of religion without a toleration could not be thought of, and with toleration is no security for public quiet and harmony, but rather a source itself of discord and animosity. And Franklin took it a step further, arguing in 1780 that any religion that seeks to impose itself is simply bad.
It's bad.
Bad, it's bad.
But Tom, you weren't watching Larry Kudlow and Mike Pence on the Foxy News, because they share an interpretation that strays wildly from what Jefferson, Franklin, and Madison clearly spelled out more than 2 centuries ago. Here's what Kudlow said. Former cokehead Kudlow, right?
Yes, former Trump, wasn't he Treasury Secretary or something?
Was that before he found Jesus or after?
Jesus brought the blow.
These lefties want to scrap religion, Mike Pence, and I think it's a terrible mistake. Well, the radical left, again, this is a quote, Dom, this one from the former vice president. You remember Hang Mike Pence, that guy? Well, the radical left believes that the freedom of religion is freedom from religion. But it's nothing the American founders ever thought of, or generations of Americans fought to defend. Actually, that is freaking exactly what I signed up to fight to defend, Dom, for the U.S. military. That is exactly what I signed up to defend, that you could not impose your will upon me, your thoughts, your beliefs, into my freaking body and my brain. Now, you can express them, but you just can't will them upon me, Dom. And I know you and I have that in common.
Crudy, as mentioned, the statement that you read, again, from Pence, that the radical left believes that the freedom of religion is the freedom from religion, and that it's nothing the American founders ever thought of or generations fought to defend. The article writes here, as mentioned, that statement is completely false. Completely false. But, you know, guys like Pence and his piety thinks because he says it and he articulates it, then it must be true. Jefferson even concluded in his treatise that such act will be an infringement of natural right. But Pence was not finished. He also suggested that the Supreme Court's right-wing supermajority has a duty to side with one faith over another.
The only true God, Dom.
Today, that means the GOP's embrace of Christian nationalism. Here is the final quote from Pence. You know, I said today here in Houston that the source of our nation's greatness has always been our faith in God, our freedom, our vast natural resources. And the good news is that after 4 years of the Trump-Pence administration, I'm confident that we have a pro-religious freedom majority on the Supreme Court of the United States.
Well, based on how he would define it, yes, that part's probably true. Pro-religious right-wing conservatism, white nationalists block of the U.S. Supreme Court, then that part's true. But please continue. I keep interrupting.
And he concludes, and I'm confident that come Election Day, November the 8th, you're going to see that freedom majority around the country turn out and vote pro-freedom majorities in the House and in the Senate and in the state houses around the country, Pence said. So stay tuned, Larry. Help is on the way. Help is on the way for what? What are you talking about? No. We are not a country founded on Judeo-Christian principles. We're not. We've had the authors of several books in that regard talking about that on the show. If you think we are, show me. And if you think these men that everyone's, all you, especially Republicans historically, the great men, these great founders of our country, you think that if they thought that it wouldn't be articulate like Pence thought? I mean, it would be Jesus, Jesus, Jesus all over. If Mike Pence was a founder, do you think there would be any doubt whatsoever that Jesus was a true God and Christianity is the religion of this country? You know damn well it would be. And be simply because Jesus is not mentioned in the Constitution shows that. And guys like Pence are dangerous because of it. And otherwise, and beyond that, if you're down with forcing religions upon people, Mike Pence, let me tell you something. I can't wait to force mine upon you. Because my religion, if that's how it is, my religion is the best, man. Free weed for all. See? We can believe anything we want, and that's the point. You can come up with any creation myth in your mind to come up with and come to the table with. But when it comes down to legislating, to civil engagement, to self-governance, because everyone has their own ideas, that's why you cancel them out. You ever do math, the equations on both sides? If you have a variable on both sides of the equal sign, you cancel them out because they don't apply, right? That's why you take away the religion. Everybody's got one or not one, and you're never going to agree upon it. And guys like you and Marjorie Taylor Greene and all you folks that want this white religious nationalist policy, that's not how this country is supposed to work. And be careful what you wish for, because more people don't believe what you believe than do.
When you started talking about algorithmic equations, it sounded like math on the radio, man.
We don't do math on the radio, man.
For a moment. And I guarantee, here's the only thing I know for sure about that whole statement, the appearance of Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence on Larry Kudlow's show. When Pence said, so stay tuned, Larry, help is on the way, Kudlow's immediate thought is, no, my Coke dealer doesn't get here till after the show. Allegedly.
He'll get here sooner or later, man.
844, help is on the way. 844-967-2789. Dick from Madison. Be helpful, Dick.
Hey, Dick.
Well, real quick, last night, I want to clean something up I said about Tom DeLay and his chief of staff working for Marjorie Taylor Greene. I wasn't at all saying he was anything, but the thing he is an effective operator in the Beltway in the day. You got to give him that. But now, to Greene, the craziness of her, after reading this thing in the New York Times this weekend, the magazine, my goodness, she says stuff that's just so out there that she's chasing the fly ball that hasn't even been hit. But, she says she ran for Congress because you didn't fund the wall, you didn't repeal Obamacare, you didn't do anything about pro-life or Planned Parenthood, and worst of all, you literally failed because you made Nancy Pelosi Speaker of House. Now, time out. The guy that you are 100% behind was running the whole ship. So why are you such a huge backer of him? He's the one who failed.
Well, Dick, of course, she doesn't mean it. I mean, it's the standard operating procedure, man. This is why I'm doing it. Here's my reasons. And no discount, of course, as you mentioned, man. They lost the midterms. I mean, Trump has been a disaster for the Republican Party and certainly for this country. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene glob on because that's the path to victory for them.
844-967-2789. I got a little headline over at one of my favorite sources, the Raw story. Marjorie Taylor Greene threatens GOP investigations, air quotes, into companies that cut off the Republicans after the January 6th riot. How dare you not fund our insurrection? Originally published at the salon.com, Dom. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican from Georgia, on Wednesday vowed that the GOP will investigate corporations that stopped donating to Republicans who supported claims of a stolen 2020 election if the party wins back the House in November. Now, I don't know why it's okay that corporations give donations to candidates, insurrectionists or otherwise, but I read on, Dom. Greene, in an appearance on former Trump advisor Steve Bannon's War Room podcast, why is that guy not in jail? Why is he podcasting? Accused businesses of silencing their employees and partaking in corporate communism. She doesn't see the oxymoron.
Irony, right? Are you kidding me? I mean, those are exactly the two opposite things. It's like the big small guy.
You know what they did after January 6th, Steve? They stopped donating. All the lobbyists, all the big corporations stopped donating to a whole bunch of my Republican colleagues that they used to donate to. They said, oh, no, we can't support you because of the big lie or whatever they want to call it. Marjorie Taylor Greene added that the company should focus on running their businesses and pleasing customers rather than getting involved in politics. But isn't she complaining that they're not funding her political ideology?
No, they're involved in politics in the wrong way. See, that was great when they were donating to her Republican friends. That was good. But if you stop doing it, then it's bad.
There is going to be investigations coming, and there definitely should be, because the way corporations have conducted themselves, I've always called it corporate communism. Dom, in the aftermath of the insurrection, nearly 250 corporations pledged to stop donating to members of Congress who voted against certifying the election. But more than 2/3 of these companies abandoned their commitment, according to a report from the Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. I think they called that crew, Dom. And while Greene didn't make clear what companies she and her colleagues would go after, she advised businesses to lawyer up. She claimed that half the country was sick and tired of woke corporations. Come back, more devil's advocates, nothing but sleepy corporations. And your phone calls, 844-96-PARTY.
Hey, McFly! You gotta let me
On his head. Mike Pence said no.
Here's today's STEM tip. Don't throw out that old plastic bottle. Repurpose it by turning it into an awesome terrarium. Just fill it with sand, pebbles, soil, and your favorite plant. It'll grow sealed right in its own ecosystem. Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates.
Hey, Jenny.
It's up to all of us. It's not just up to Democrats. Are we ready to rid our country of this perversion and deception? Are we sick of massacres at churches, grocery stores, theaters, concerts? Are we sick of adults forcing children who are raped into pregnancy? When is enough that we're going to vote out those fascists?
I'm putting you down for Caller Hall of Fame today. We have to carry these messages, even if the Democratic Party is incapable. You keep it up, sister.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter. You've waited 12 years for this, but you just didn't know what the flavor was going to be. Nothing has tasted quite right up until now. Sometimes it tasted dumb, crazy, or even seditious. But now it tastes just right. Introducing Mandela Mash, a legit lager. This beer won't embarrass you in public. It comes in an aluminum can, not a tinfoil hat, and it was made in America, not Russia. With a clean finish, the taste doesn't lie. Mandela Mash, the only sane choice for U.S. Senate. Available only in Wisconsin. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com to find where you can buy this fresh new flavor of American democracy.
My neighbors have different opinions about COVID-19 vaccines. Getting vaccinated is your choice. No one can make your mind up for you. Talk to your healthcare provider about your questions and go to getvaccineanswers.org for the latest information. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
And we're back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. If you got something to say, hit us up right now. 844-967-2789.
Dominic, not all callers are created equal, so I'm going for the preferred list, the good callers. Start with Pizza Box Mike, our good friend. How you doing, Pizza?
Hey, Mike.
Hey, you know how we've always had to, plug our nose when we vote a lot of times?
Often.
Yeah. I'm thinking Republicans must need a barf bag to vote just about every time now, don't you think?
You'd like to think so, Pizza Box, but they kind of seem to embrace this, man. They're now embracing the mocking, the vitriol, the just the attitude, the crappy attitude, Mike. That's what seemed. They're all about it, man.
Ends justify the means, Pizza Box. You know that, man. Power.
Hey, they got,
just give me the power.
It's that new strain, man. They got the zombie COVID, man. Their brains are just starting to. And I think you got one waiting to call, don't you? Is there one waiting online right now? Probably. Yeah, there's got to be at least one of those zombies out there.
At least one.
Maybe there may be, Mike. And once you stand by, let's see if we can get the zombie line here. CJ, you are up. Welcome, zombie CJ. What do you got for us? Oh, where's CJ? There he is. Hey, CJ, welcome.
The reality that you guys are facing, it's like watching a movie that nobody's watching the same movie because your party's in control. This disaster economy.
The economy of the GDP is 2.6%.
It's growing, man.
Disaster,
it's growing, CJ.
Yeah.
Exceeded
You
expectations.
tell people every time they buy groceries and fuel that the economy's great.
Well, yes, there is a worldwide inflation problem, CJ. It happens in every single country right now because of the way we had to ramp up from the COVID pandemic, CJ. I don't know what to tell you, man. Let me ask you this. What policies of the Democrats increased inflation around the world?
Get ready for the red tsunami, Dom, because you're living in fantasy.
I know, but you
world.
can't even answer a question, CJ. That's how terrible you are. You come up, you bring up, you can't even bring it. We tell you that the economics, and Grissom, there's still some headwind here, man. There's no doubt. Rates are still going up, right? The Fed's still going to raise rates. They're trying to do this. They're trying to calm things down, right? So, and exports were apparently the economists believe that exports were going to be increased in this quarter, and they were, and that was a big part of it. So there are some certainly headwinds. Home prices are down. But at the end of the day, as it stands right now, 2.6 was higher than the 2.3% projected on the GDP growth. And point number two, economic inflation around the world. This is around the world, Republicans and zombie CJ. This is not something that the Democrats did. If that would be the case, then it would only be happening here in the United States of America, and it is not. I could point you to the IMF website. They have a nice little click on the country and see what the inflation rate is, CJ. So there's no one policy that made this happen from Joe Biden, man. So let's just get over that. You're wrong on that, CJ. Just accept it. And now, yes, is there a tough battle right now for this midterm? No doubt about it. And historically, as it stands, you guys, Republicans, should have the upper hand. But you are so terrible. Your candidates are so terrible. Your QAnon megas are so terrible. You might just blow it, CJ.
You got nothing.
CJ, over at the Washington Post, Jennifer Rubin wrote a little piece And point number 5 is Republicans have no plan to fight inflation, as Don was trying to point out. Republicans propose extending tax cuts, cracking down on immigration, and eliminating cost-cutting measures for prescription drug costs. But none of these would address inflation. They would make it worse by increasing the national debt, further tightening the job market, and acting as fiscal stimulus in an already overheated economy. Worse, Republicans are willing to stage a default crisis to demand that Democrats accept cuts to entitlements. Senator Marco Rubio, when pressed on his plan to fight inflation during a recent debate, insisted that the government must stop spending on items such as the American Rescue Plan, which ended last year, and produce more domestic energy, which is largely irrelevant to inflation. Had the media devoted fewer resources to the horse race coverage, voters might have a clearer picture of whether Republicans would make inflation better or worse. You and I both know, CJ, it's going to be worse under Republicans. You can claim it's bad, but I would also blame the Federal Reserve, Dom, because I don't know how increasing interest rates and putting financial strain on borrowing and the American public is going to cut corporate greed, because that's what the source of the vast majority of this inflation is. It's
Look
petrochemical
at
interest.
Third quarter Shell reports today, almost $10 billion, $9.5 billion.
Yes, the inflation is coming from corporate greed, and raising the interest rates at a half a point of crack, 3/4 of a point of crack has now pushed mortgage rates to over 7%, first time in 20 years. And what's that going to do? It's going to cause a lot of people to stop seeking housing. They're not going to look for housing. They're not going to go buy a house. Why? Because the interest rates have spiked. So what are we going to see next? We're going to see a drop in the home prices. But most of this has been precipitated by greed in the petrochemical industry. See the Shell stock reports. And above and beyond that, it is across the board corporate greed. Why is the stock market doing so well despite this backdrop of contraction the last 2 quarters? Now, suddenly we've seen an increasing economy down, but why isn't the market off precipitously? Of course, because
they're still profitable.
Profits.
Yeah, right, man. They are coming in. Shell specifically, and it depends on the sector, right? Meta, Facebook, not looking real great these days. They're down a lot, but again, depending on the sector. But look at oil. Look what Shell just did, and they're doing a $4 billion stock buyback. Take it while you can, and if you got it, even if you're holding stock, if it's in your mutual fund, hell, congratulations to all of you. But there's an opportunity the Republicans had to address that legislatively. There should not be price gouging, right? Or is there any price gouging? Is it just let the market decide no matter what, Republicans? Because that's exactly what's happening, at least to a large degree.
You know what there's inflation in? Campaign ad spending. Mandela Barnes' campaign bragging they've raised $8.5 million in the last 19 days, triple the amount of Rojo. And Rojo, when questioned about the NRSC and the outside spending on his behalf, seemed quite resigned to the fact
He's good with it.
Well, he could throw some of his own money in the pot, Dom. He did that once upon a time. Thank you.
OPM, baby.
To our fine guest, Congressman Mark Pocan, my congressman, our friend. Thank you all for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, moving towards the midterms. And Obama this weekend. You will tune in on Civic Media. You'll hear it live about 3 to 6. Expect Obama to speak sometime after 5. And then a big Halloween party as well. Now, don't forget, keep it locked. The Empowered Caregivers rolling out here on WTTN, Devil Radio in Madison. And our good buddy, Joel Clayfish in the Shaw, raised in the Wisco. More live radio right here on Civic Media. Keep it locked. See you tomorrow on the radio.
All right, man.
Thanks, Yvonne.
You greedy dirtbag! It is absolutely 150% your fault.
Do you want Wisconsin to suck? I don't. That's why you're listening to me now. I'm Hawk, owner of the Jade Monkey. Come to the Monkey and tell them you're there because the devil sent you. Then, I can spend more money on ads and help Devil Radio keep Wisconsin from spiraling into post-apocalyptic Republican suckage. I mean, that's Iowa's job. Buy a round of the Jade Monkey and save Wisconsin one drink at a time.
Suck down drinks so we don't have to suck.
Okay.
Darcy Haber, I hear you have solar panels on your office building. Since when are real estate brokers so concerned about the environment?
Drew, you should know that at Solidarity Realty, we provide outstanding real estate service while adhering to our core progressive values. Environmental sustainability is a big part of that.
So you really walk your talk, huh?
Yeah, I even walk to work.
Come on, always?
Well, sometimes I bike, and if I have an appointment across town, I use my solar panels to charge my plug-in.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, and they're honest. Check them out at Solidarity Realty.
You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil Radio app.
AP News, I'm Tim McGuire. President Biden travels to Syracuse, New York to celebrate the plan to build the nation's largest microchip plant.
It's the largest American investment of its kind ever in our history. Thank you very much, boss.
The president also claimed should the